Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sales Leaders Playbook podcast. We have a very special guest here today. This is Jordan Goure. He is an entrepreneur and a CEO who launched his first business at 19 and now owns a winery, resort properties, and a real estate development company. He is co-founder and CEO of Picsume, a Canadian software firm focused on ethical AI and workforce solutions. So great to have you here, Jordan.
Thanks for having me. Very special guest, you said.
Great.
Make a guy feel special. Thanks, Justine. Happy to be here.
Always. Yeah. So that said, 19. Why don't you take us back to the beginning? What is the story of how you got started? Like, what was your first real sale?
Yeah, so 19, obviously, like we're kids at 19. More so now today. I think most of my staff still lives at home at 30, so 19 was young. That was a long time ago, though. So I basically came to university like a lot of people out of high school thinking that this was the way to go. But I came from like a small farm community, so only about 4,000 people. And in that farm community, you basically corn to tassel. That was like your first job. It was just understood you get out in those fields and you work, or you do something different. So I chose something different after about 1 or 2 years out in the fields at like 15, 16. I did like door to door sales. So my first sale, since you asked it, yeah, door to door sales. I was selling pizza cards. And then I remember locking in like gas regulated contracts, even though I was like 16 years old. I was giving people advice on like their utility pricing. And from there, I went into a call center actually when I was 17, 18 to start saving up for university. And then, yeah, I did what everyone does. You go to university, you get a professional degree, and that's going to lead to the big paychecks. Well, I learned quickly that the learning outside of university was equally, if not more important. So I started my first company in my second year of university, and that was in hospitality.
Wow, good story, amazing. So, all right. So you went from door to door sales, telemarketing, hospitality. So that's quite the array of experience, all before a young ripe age. But when you're looking at your business now today, what does growth mean to you? Is it variety? Is it revenue? Is it market share, team size, or something else?
That's a good question. And obviously, like being a CEO and not just what I am now, the head of our sales team at our software, within our software company as well, the answer would be different depending on like an operational standpoint. What's that mean to me? What's growth? What's forecast? And from a sales standpoint, which I think now in the world of sales, as much as they've changed with automations and technology over the past 20 years of being in sales, the answer is very different because it's you have to live it now. It's everyone thinks they can automate sales and get great results. We're going to talk a lot about that today. That's not true. The persistence and the best practice sales techniques that I learned as a kid are actually more important now today because people know when you're automating things, you're not actually being a human that's persistent. So how I like track sales from a sales team leader perspective is different than obviously as a CEO. We're looking at the complete picture. We're looking at are we hitting targets within industries, not just big sales or big whale clients that we're going after. Whereas the sales part of me always just wants to hit those big whale clients, just like anyone that's been in sales their whole career. So I think we'll go deeper today, but different answers. CEO, growth, hitting metrics for the company. We have a lot of company objectives. From a sales team leader, I still love hitting those key clients so I can have the trickle down effect to our sales team where they can benefit from these big key clients.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Well, what is your vision for sales for the next 3 to 5 years? And I don't just mean looking between now to 5 years. I mean, each of that year 3, year 4, year 5. Can you be specific? Can you visualize each of those years and tell me what your vision is?
Yeah, I'll try to stay specific to software today while touching briefly on like some of the other companies because I think it's interesting to bring them into the mix
Bring it all
because
in.
it's still, it, yeah, so because it's
Yeah.
still selling a service, right? So from the hospitality side, as we said, started a business at 19. That was a restaurant, but I quickly got into not just the service side of the industry where you're selling just the service aspect, but into the manufacturing. So I opened up my first microbrewery in 2013. So we were right at the start of that craft beer craze in Ontario. We got into manufacturing wine in 2017. That's how we expanded into a full-fledged winery in 2019. So selling those products actually is what I think was some of the key training points that I learned to selling another product, which is software, but still a product nonetheless, and not just a
Mhm.
service, as you would think that like software as a service company would operate. So I think I bring some of those tangible sales lessons from like the actual consumer products that I was selling previously. But yeah, so 3, 4, 5 to answer your question directly for the winery, we've kind of pulled out of a lot of sales channels. LCBO beer store, like a lot of the regulated channels in Ontario, because there's been huge sales slump the last few years. And we
Yeah.
went fully after like experience style tourism. And that's why we have now 3 resort properties. So at all of our properties, we have a beach retreat that's at the southernmost beach in Canada. We have a golf retreat, and then we have the full winery resort retreat, which we also do events, weddings, corporate events, that type of thing. So we basically sell all of our products to our own properties now. And our sales is for the experience style tourism, which it's funny, it's kind of blending the product with a product with the service there. And we've seen a ton of success expanding into that the last few years. So we plan on doubling down on that. We have 2 more resorts, or additions to the resorts, 2 more resort properties in the same areas that we've been investing in over the next 3 to 5 years that we're building right now. Now, from a software perspective, I mean, sales increase at a drastic rate, right? It's you sign one client, and at Picsume we build a lot of networks. So when you sell a big client, would be maybe a network, right? So it would be all hiring within even a certain industry for one of the largest players in the game, and then we trickle down to some people within that network. Let's say it's a franchise in hospitality. We would sell to a head office, and then we go down throughout the franchise. So your goals really shift, and as I said, we want to hit milestones in the company, and this would be industry specific milestones we're trying to target. Your goals really shift year to year because it's like I want to be realistic in my projections for an investor standpoint, but I want to kill and beat the shit out of those projections from a sales standpoint. So 3 to 5, yeah, I mean, to the moon is where we're going with software. We did 38 times sales growth from 2024 to 2026. Obviously, that's not, I can't repeat that year over year, maybe I can. So, I mean, yeah, I don't want to get too detailed, but that's a little bit of a long about answer.
Love it, and I hope you achieve it. So basically, you're monopolizing, like in the resort situation, in the leisure, you're monopolizing each of those elements. So they're working, together, selling the wine to the resorts. The resorts are buying the wine. The resorts are growing. I love it. So in terms of software, though, and this is kind of throwing you through a loop, are you going to do anything like that with the software world? Do you have any plans for the software world to kind of create businesses or systems that can kind of feed into each other?
Yeah, I mean, synergy is everything. And that's actually like a small business lesson. Like, so starting in small business, how many times have you heard, maybe even on this podcast, people say, well, I was my own firm, so I had to wear many hats and I had to do these things. Those many hats is what limit your growth in those years that we just talked about, is if I'm keeping those hats on at all times, right? So I
Right.
think what's going to be clear through our conversation is that I've tried to take off all of the hats except the sales hat within all my organizations. So I passed off all operations for all companies other than sales. And I did that back in 2020. We went into full-fledged software development in the end of 2021. So the only team meetings I join in for the winery or the manufacturing companies or the resorts is year-end strategic decision-making, sales, what are we going after, what products are we doing. I get to do the wine tastings to pick the products, that type of thing. When you bring software into it, of course, it makes sense to synergize. So first off, the industries we targeted originally, because I understood the industries I was in, were our first, and it wasn't just we built a product. Obviously, I would like to talk about how we came up with the product, because obviously as a co-founder, I'm part of building that.
Mm-hmm.
But the product was built for the industries that I understood and the gaps in the markets that I understood from using products in those markets. So the synergy is one of our first and largest clients was actually within hospitality. So at Picsume, one of the larger networks that we power is called ORMA, the Ontario Restaurant Hotel Motel Association. They have 11,000 individual locations, 5,000 members. So this would be an example of one network that we power where we get access to all of this, trickle down to all of these obviously leads and people that were powering their technology just by nature of a partnership. That then our sales team takes over. They come in and they try to get everyone on board, and it becomes like a client experience situation as opposed to an original sale. So yeah, a ton of synergy in that I target industries that I understand that they have a need for our product and software. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next few years for sure. So obviously just repeat what I said from hospitality to real estate. So we're working with a lot of real estate brokerages, sales agencies. I think it's important to understand what Picsume does, if you want to get into that a little bit, because it'll make more sense of how we plan on achieving our sales objectives. Do you want me to do a quick overview?
Would love for you to. Please go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so I'm 19, have a business. By the time I'm 22, 23, I have 4 businesses. And as I said, it went quickly from like service hospitality to product. So I had to hire a lot of different people. So it went from, bartenders to sales managers. At that time, we had about 200 staff, and our HR team was two, myself and my brother, who my brother is more of a creative. We're like two halves of the brain. I've always been more data and analytical and finance minded. My brother's creative, marketing. So we've always worked well together, not stepped on toes. And we've shared the HR duties as a lot of like small to moving up to the medium sized enterprise do. So back when we'd hire these people, and remember when you're hiring people, whether it's in service or within sales teams, like the people are your revenue, right? Like the people that make up your team. Everyone thinks, oh, you have a great product, you build it, they will come. I mean, for the most part, that's BS. Like the benchmark is you have to have a great product or you have to have a great service. So what sets you apart is the people that are obviously on the front lines that are public facing for your companies. So we always had difficulty. We post a job, right, to replace, and a lot of it in these types of industries, hospitality, real estate, it's a lot of people coming straight out of high school, straight out of university, straight out of a training program. So there's a lot of turnover just by nature of it's people coming to get their chops within sales or within this industry, and they haven't decided where they want their careers to be. So you're trying to identify, like these are obviously key pain points, right? We're trying to identify people that really are the face of our organization that are going to help increase sales within our companies. Then not only are we trying to identify that, but we have to repeatedly refill these positions because also, as everyone knows, you're training great salespeople. Now they're going to get other roles. So we were sick of like posting a job on a Kijiji, or this was even pre-Indeed, posting a job, getting 1,000 resumes, static documents, pieces of paper. We started a lot of our outreach with, do you know when the resume was invented? Justine, do you know when the first resume was used?
Couldn't tell you, but I bet you
Leonardo,
do.
Leonardo da Vinci, I do. So we're
Okay.
talking late 1400s, and
Okay.
it has not changed much since then. It's still a piece of paper with a bunch of experience. It's converted into a LinkedIn profile now, maybe, and connects to, some other people verifying information. But it's like, it's still a piece of paper. It's out of date the minute I hand it out. It doesn't accurately reflect who I am if I want to get a job. Most of the things on this piece of paper are now generated within the era of AI generation. But even when I was accepting and I'm looking at this faceless static document, trying to understand the people that are going to be the best people to have my team. So I said, there's got to be a better way. That's where Picsume, the concept started. But I immediately realized that it'd be very difficult to bootstrap a tech company at that time with so many companies operating. So I basically thought of it. We worked on it a little bit and we shelved it. And we said, listen, let's just go do some more work. So we spent about another 8 years going from that manufacturing into the real estate development. And the problem persisted. Every time I hired construction or contractors, same issue. I couldn't identify people to join my team. And I'm going through a bunch of BS on a resume as opposed to seeing projects in those situations. So 2021 comes around, it's COVID, the whole world gets laid off. One of my best friends, an enterprise level software developer, built everything from the Harvard Press to Ticketmaster as part of those enterprise teams. And I said, look, Nick Mastermati, who's the co-founder of Picsume with me, I said, this is the issue I've encountered hiring across all of these different companies. And it has not been fixed from what I've seen from the tools I have access to. Let's do a deep dive right now into HR tech since neither of us are in HR. And let's learn how the best people in the world are hiring. And that kind of led us to, like the recruit prospecting and headhunting models and all of these things out there. We actually brought on an advisor from one of the biggest recruitment firms in Ontario. They went through all of the tools that they use, which was like 10 pieces of software jammed together to be functional. We said that also doesn't make sense. Why do you need 10 pieces of software to solve just this one issue? So after that deep dive, after finding all these issues within the technology, after feeling the pain point deepest for now at this point, I was in business for a little over a decade, we said, we got to change it. We got to do something. We started development in 2021 to build what is Picsume today, which is a dynamic profile, dynamic view of people that are going to join your team. We structure the data, and I'll be talking for like an hour if I just talk about features of company now, but we solved that issue first. We solved this resume that's meaningless. We created something that's dynamic, a talent profile that collects structured data of the person, allows you to go through very quickly, find the people that should join your team, and then we built great intake systems, so great software to intake that from the enterprise to large company side.
Love it. So, and you probably respond. So people don't realize that a resume is such a small predictor, like a standard resume is such a small predictor of the person's success. Like just some key points resume, that's not actually, it's like a 20, 30% going to predict, if that, if the person's going to work out or not. So there's so much missing information on resumes such as, how are they going to behave in a certain situation, their behavior, what are their motivations, their gaps. I'm sure there's a lot of technology, assessment technology and assessment result technology that you're incorporating in this as well, right?
I love that you said like how they're going to interact in certain situations, which is a very important one. Everyone puts a skill on their resume. Literally everyone, problem solving, right? It's
Right.
like I put that skill, so now I can do problem solving. I can do conflict resolution because I put it on it. It's in the skill section. It's how do you test these things? How do you know if these people have these things based on their experience as well, rather than them just writing it out?
Right.
You said 30% indication of their success. I would counter that was probably an accurate stat before most resumes were fabricated, but now everyone's just pulling in a job description,
Right.
throwing it into an LM like GPT, and saying, "Get me this job." So now it's just lies.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West out there in the HR tech world, right?
Well, the word of the year, I don't know if now we're really going on a tangent and I love it. The word of the year is slop.
Yeah,
That's like the actual word of the year. AI slop. A bunch
yeah,
of people thought the AI was going to do create amazing abundance and miracles and whatever, and it still can. But it's creating a lot of slop. So I think we're in a transitional period, and projects and businesses and programs like what you're using, you're getting the truth. You're getting the truth in a very predictive, visually easy to understand, easy to go through way, without a bunch of nonsense that is just slop. So yeah, I'd like to kind of hear more about that. What do you think
yeah.
of the word slop, especially with resumes and how people are hiring these days?
Yeah, it's actually like this AI slop that you've heard, like the buzzword, like you said, of the year. It's actually breaking the technology that's created it, right? Like that's what's happening is we're gumming up these LLMs with this slop, this unstructured data that's everywhere that's actually been generated by the LLMs. So now they're being fed this slop, right? And now they can't function properly. So I mean, even in the last few weeks, if you read anywhere and if you test any of the newer models or you have paid access to OpenAI for ChatGPT, you can see how much worse it's actually getting and how much
Hmm.
better you have to get at using it to prompt it to actually get proper outcomes.
Hmm.
And so, anyways, it's a massive issue. Now within resumes, um, it's not just the slop in the generated data. It's also all the automations that are so easy. Like every kid out there can run a quick automation, and I can send out 10,000 resumes in a minute, in 5 seconds. So
Wow.
now this slop, this generated info, is actually breaking the system. So applicant tracking systems within HR tech, they're called. It's actually breaking the system. So what you have is AI generating a piece of paper. Then you have AI sending that piece of paper, amplifying that, sending it 10,000 times. Then you have an AI intake system reading that piece of paper, can't read it properly. It gets gummed up because so many are coming in. And then there's not actually any human oversight within it's called human resources. We've completely taken humans out of the equation. So it's I mean, obviously I have a lot to say about it. Have we fixed all of it? We fixed some things. I mean, Pixume, you already pointed out, I mean, just great insights into just what I talked about briefly earlier. It's kind of a source of truth, right? I have to verify and validate this information since I can't generate it. And while we're structuring it, it's structured to be read by these systems properly, so it's not going to break them on intake. That's also going to give you a better chance of getting an interview because now the system's reading my profile properly. And there's so much more. I mean, now we're taking some bias. We're doing bias mitigation with our matching algorithm that we've just patented. So not only are we taking this data, structuring it properly so it's read properly, but then we're restricting the flow of information to the LLM. So it's actually not making decisions for a human on things that it shouldn't be making. We're empowering the decision making on the other end by doing it this way. So there's a lot of things we're doing to combat that. Bots can't get through our system, our onboarding system. You think of like a reCAPTCHA, how that stopped like bots going through. Pixume
Yep.
similar, AI assisted onboarding. So while you're verifying the information, you have to be verifying. You can't have a bot do it for you. There's too many steps. So yeah, we've combated a lot of it. There's so much more for us to do. This is part of our mission statement, the CEO mission statement we talked about earlier, not just a sales goal, but how are we going to combat this for the next few years in this world of messiness where humans aren't making decisions on what humans do for work? It makes no sense.
Cool. Well, it's exciting. Big opportunity. So, in terms of generating leads right now, a couple questions. Like, what is working best that you have found? Because you did the ad, you probably did the ads, you did all the things. What's working best for generating new leads, and how is that different than when you started?
Yeah, so when we started, so Picsume specifically, when we started 2021, so 2022, we just did our candidate side build out, meaning we were collecting candidate data. We were doing beta tests with universities, colleges to find out what information we should be collecting to fill in those missing blanks that you mentioned earlier too, where it's missing from a resume, access to transportation, language proficiency, certifications outside of education, availability, first question asked in every interview. So we put all this together, and that's how we built our profiles. So leads then were like institutions that would let us go in and engage with their students. So there's a lot of obviously connecting through professional conferences, all these types of things to get us in those rooms with these educators, because they really have to trust you, because you're talking about human data and you're talking about impressionable human data, because it would be students, So that was one. So what we did back then was a ton of like human to human outreach conferences, not trying to sell a product, but trying to do like a research perspective. Now, how it evolved though in 2023, when we launched our first employer intake, and employer intake would be like their workspace they'd use to intake all of these profiles that Picsume's that are created, all these Picsume profiles, so they can make better hiring decisions. When we launched that, we started beta with, I believe, 70 employers was part of our batch of employers for beta testing in 2023. We just listened for almost a year and let them use the tools, build if they needed help or needed recruitment assistance. But we honestly just listened and iterated. 2024, we raised, so we did a pretty meaningful raise. Secured that with a ton of government funding, so a lot of grant funding to build our technology. So we brought dollars in to kind of pay for a sales team and operations team, and we used a lot of research style grants to pay for product development. So in 2024, I'd say we're like ahead of the curve with using dollars from our $1 million+ raise, of going into like the automation tools back then, like the Instantly's of the world, automated email outreach, sending out 12 to 15,000, using great databases. And then since we're an AI team, filtering down those databases to try to qualify leads automated. So we did a lot of the automated stuff, and we saw a lot of success early on. And then about a year, maybe a year and a half after that, we saw that entire like engine start to slow down. And it was because it was becoming like mainstream, basically. Everyone was learning how to mine databases and qualified leads through automation. Everyone was learning how to set up 6 sequence emails that are best in practice and have the right text count or content within them to try to get leads. So what ended up happening, and you've heard this a lot, Justine, I'm sure, noise, right? There's just a whole bunch of noise out in the industry. So when we saw that happening, so I think this is important in the conversation, because we're going through another big shift right now, where we still have all this automation happening. But now what I have our sales team and direct sales approach doing is like disruptive messaging tactics. So disruptive short emails, direct outreach through obviously LinkedIn networks and all of these things that you can do digitally to save time so you don't have to be in person, but that are proving you're a genuine, real person. Because when we do these, we see way higher, not only qualification of leads or champions that we want to work with, but way higher response to actually booking meetings.
Definitely. And that's the human element. You can use AI to get in. So AI is a great tool for like grunt work, right? But then at the end of the day, you're selling to a human. No one's going to buy a big ticket item with an AI bot. But this is kind of off topic. There is this person on LinkedIn, and he was putting this company on blast that sent him an AI message. It was clearly AI. And, this guy's got a big following. So he's kind of pinpointing all the areas that he messed up, or the person who sent that automated AI email to him kind of messed up how he could tell it was AI. But if you go and look at the comments section, there's like 100 comments, and they're all AI generated comments. And he's responding to these AI generating comments as if it's a real comment. So the entire thing was complete hypocritical beyond, despair. So it's like, you can't like, people are going to know it's AI, and people are going to know where you're going to pick and choose AI. So you might as well use AI, absolutely, for the grunt work. But when you're dealing with human beings, you can't escape it. Like, humans are humans. Humans are very effective at using tools. That's AI as a tool, but we are not the tool. So I just thought it was hilarious how he's blasting this company for using AI, but he's responding to every message that is AI generated to increase engagement or whatever. So yeah, we see it all the time. Cool. Love it.
You raise a good point right there about AI being a tool. I think going into this next version and this next gen of AI, like the agents, where people are like want them to be team members so badly, right? And it's like, okay, well, the team members that it can replace, I think you accurately were pretty accurate, and they're grunts, right? Like they're doing data entry, they're doing grunt works, and that's a team member. When you try to have them replace where a human would expect a human, it's where you're going to see failure every time, and that's where that workflow or that system's going to break down. So I mean, I don't even have to tell you, you're already up on it. It's a tool, use it as a tool. Anyone that's not using it as a tool is also going to fail. It's like, I'm a superhero now because I have AI as a tool and you don't have it. I'm a superhero in the sales game and you're not because you're not using it effectively. So every single sales leader out there or company leader has to learn how to use it and how to use it to their strengths as well. I think that's where people don't realize. It's not like using a tool like a calculator. It's I need to learn how to change what I do on a daily basis, how to adjust my workflows to implement it in it to make me more productive and like I said, a superhero. Really, that's what you can do with this edition.
Yeah, if you know how to, if you can think it and imagine it, if you can prompt it, yeah, it's use the strengths that you are given. You know, the people sometimes the people with the least amount get the most creative because they're leaning into what they know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So as you're growing, you know, every business has a messy middle, quote unquote. So can you share a time recently or in the past or whatever when a deal, a hire, or a strategy didn't go as planned? Like actually didn't go as planned. And what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So, I mean, these usually hit pretty close to home within sales because, like, if a hire doesn't go according to plan, it's usually pretty close to home because you're working so closely with them because it's the lifeblood of your company, right? It's revenue in. So I think myself, along with everyone that watches or has been on this podcast, have had bad hires in sales by nature of the business. Actually, and I have these discussions in like these types of sales groups and stuff all the time. It's like it's hard to really, when you get to the interview stage for salespeople, to know if they're just good at selling themselves or they're a good salesperson, right? And we've all encountered this. So yeah, with one of our hires within Picsume, did not work out. Great at selling themselves, but did not work out. What I learned what I learned was a lesson that I already learned 10 or 15 years ago, but you know, sometimes you forget. It was, I need to be leading this team. I need to be doing these things first before I can pass them off when it's the lifeblood of my company. When you're growing fast in tech, I think you lose that pretty fast. It's like, oh, well, I want to be a product guy for a while because we're building so much product. And I've been building this mousetrap because it was pain points I experienced as a business owner. Well, okay. I mean, if you're passing off a part of your company that's the lifeblood to go to the other part of the company, you think it's like, you know, you only have so much time. So as you grow and you scale, you think, oh, I can pass these things off. And you can, but there's certain things you should not be passing off. That's what I learned. And especially not until you've maximized your efficiency within that company. You know, I passed them off in other companies, thought I could do it in this one. I could not. So yeah, I learned salespeople, they can sell themselves. Sometimes they can't sell what you want them to sell. And that's just, I mean, and not all salespeople can sell everything either. That's another big misnomer.
Not an uncommon problem for successful growing companies. And another stat, which is even worse, the interviewing an individual is even lower predictability of if they're going to work out or not than the resume.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. There's not a lot of fixes coming in the industry for this. I'm sorry to tell you too. Like we've tested pretty much all the interview assessment software out there. The thing I hate about it personally is the dehumanizing component of it. And this interview assessment software that's trying to figure this out, trying to do like insights into people's body language and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's a person talking to a wall a lot of times in these AI interview programs. The ones that I see that are doing better now are actually being prompted better. So they're like changing and prompting a person and these things as opposed to just an interview. But I think we're far in HR tech. If I had to give you some insights, I think we're pretty far from solving that interview issue right now. What we're doing at Picsume is trying way more information collection up front so you can make way better decision making of who lands in that interview. So it's still a human on human interaction, but you're basically empowered with way more knowledge than you ever were interviewing people before. And not just how to interview, but of the actual candidate you're interviewing.
That's right. So how are you using, this is a not part of the list of questions, but how are you using behavior prediction assessment tools to uh, be embedded with your software so that, because assessment tools are one of the most effective ways to predict what someone will do. So if you can embed that in your Picsume software, you almost can't lose. Is that
Yeah. So
mm,
sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
yes,
no,
excited to answer this one because you're right. So where you're saying embedded, it's we're integrating these tools right into this key profile data, right?
that's the word.
Um, so as opposed to like remaking these assessment tools and assessment software, we've stayed pretty far away from that. There's a ton of companies coming out with great assessments, different types of assessments, different ways of collecting the data. But what we saw and where we identified a gap in that was you have all this different assessment software, and where do you collate all the information together, right? So that's what we've been doing at Pixme, is integrating with all of them, collating the information, attaching this key profile data. So now I can see 5 assessments in one place. I can get insights from all 5 assessments, and then I can compare it to their other profile data that would have been from their resume or from their application. So that's one thing we're doing, is being like a source of all of that data. Another we're doing is figuring out deliverability. So we're calling this, again, signals noise, signal-based hiring. So, within sales where you have a CRM and you can see like great customers based on activity within each customer account. So you can see your sales team, like they had a good lead. Now this is how many times they've been in touch. And this is like a signal that's always documented within CRMs. That doesn't really exist in HR tech. So we've kind of built that into our applicant tracking system for some of our larger clients, where like completing the application is one part, right? But then we drip out some assessments, and then if they complete them, it's not just what they're saying in the assessment, but it's the fact that they complete it
Yeah,
shows that they actually want the job, so they'll show up for an interview. Because
right.
you remember, we're not just trying to, like, one of the biggest issues in the market right now is ghosting. It's on both sides. It's people like booking interviews because they're sending out 1,000 applications, but they actually don't want the jobs, and then they're not showing up to interviews. And now humans are taking their time, and then people aren't showing up. So we're actually trying to like control that first part and not the assessment part, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Totally. Absolutely. Love it. Love it. All right. So as you look ahead to the next year or 2 years, 12 to 24 months, what is the biggest opportunity you see, as well as the biggest threat that you predict?
The biggest what, sorry?
The biggest opportunity? What is the biggest opportunity that you see in your industry, in your business, in your world over the next 1 to 2 years? Also, what is the biggest threat?
The biggest threat to, so
Yeah.
would you say like threat to greater society or threat to just our company?
To your company, to your industry, to your world? Like, what's the biggest opportunity to your company? What's the biggest threat to your company, your industry, or the business world you work in?
So the biggest opportunity is in the lessons that we're learning from building the technology we built. And the biggest opportunity that we've identified is where we thought we were just building, a better mousetrap for validating and qualifying hires. What we really built is a better way to collect human data so it functions properly with AI tools. And that's what we've built at Pixme. So right now, in beta, we're actually, the next version of what we're about to launch is not just AI assisted onboarding, but it's AI assisted intake, meaning that the AI that is now helping you onboard and create your profiles and really um, helping you show who you are, it's also there to be like, um, think of it like a person that works for the company and is doing intake with you, like a
Hmm.
human on the other side. And this is what you can do with agents now. So what I mean is, when I'm onboarding and I want to apply to a company, if I go to their careers page right now and it's got a form and I have to fill out this form and then I have to attach a resume at the end, we call that shit work in technology. It's like, why did I fill out all these fields, but then I had a resume that had all that information? It could have parsed and filled those fields out for me. That was
Right.
step one that we fixed. Now, step two is, why should I want to work for your company? This is what I think a lot of people are missing. It's like, well, we have great culture. We have great pictures on our contact us page of all these team retreats we've done. Well, no, it's like most people want to work for a company nowadays because they're doing something innovative. They're doing something sustainable. They actually believe in the product. Like, the world's changed a little bit from when our parents were getting jobs, where they just wanted a great job to pay for a family. People want to do something that matters. So we're building an AI intake system that doesn't just take your information, but it also shares information about the organization you're joining. So it's a person basically every step of the way that's assisting you in applying to that company. So this is a big opportunity I see, because not only now are we structuring the human data, not only is it dynamic, so it's up to date at all times, because when you build a Picsume, you always have access to information. It's always updated. It's not like a piece of paper. We structure it to a PDF, send it as a payload to an employer, but the person that created it always can update it, and it dynamically updates and sends the updated file. This is like part of what we do. So now not only is it verified, validated information, not only is it dynamic and up to date, but we've also verified that this person actually wants to join your organization. So I think you're seeing like what we're doing is making AI function properly from a human data component as opposed to just from a software component.
Yeah, making sure that it's a customized fit.
Yeah.
Right. Then just what you get is what you get. Like, why not pair up someone with who would actually would really benefit them, and hiring them would also benefit the company. Love it.
And what we've seen as far as opportunity on that too, and we deal with a lot of companies on this, is when you're onboarding and collecting this candidate data, it's pretty similar to collecting client data of someone that wants to work with your company. So we've actually used our tool to like build custom profiles, like client profiles, as opposed to just people that want to work for you, because it's a similar process. And that's also in testing right now. We've got that launched with maybe 8 or 9 large enterprise, and they're loving it. Like, we're getting way better direct data input. So that's another big one. And then, biggest risk or threat. So the biggest risk or threat is obviously within software, and we're trying to stay ahead of this, is anything that everyone thought what they were doing within software, the moat was the software, was that I built this, I built a great market, I got a sales team. This was the SaaS model for the last 20 years. It's like, once I get a client, I'm so embedded in their workflows that they can't get rid of me. This is like the SaaS model. Well, first, that's like getting thrown out the window right now. And we've tried to avoid being a SaaS product for that reason. It's not as much like the data you should be collecting from a technology, from like, if I'm looking at the data from if my technology is functioning as a CEO, it's not how many times is someone logging into their dashboard. It's more so, can they not do something without having my tool be a part of the workflow? And I'll break that down a little further. It's like, if we are so important in, let's say they're qualifying an applicant to get to the interview stage, that they never have to log into a dashboard, but our tool functions in between, structuring, collecting this data, passing it through a matching algorithm, going through these steps to make sure they'll show up to the interview, and then I spit the payload out the other side, pass it over to an HRIS, interview software, assessment software, as you mentioned, so they go take assessments. If we are that one cog, which we call the front door of hiring, and we're doing it efficiently, effectively, and HR managers don't even know we have to be there, that's how I would see our platform and our software being effective, not from a login standpoint. But the great risk is, technology is advancing at such a rate that we have to keep advancing, right? This is where it's both competitive. The market's become more competitive. I can vibe code an app in a weekend that I couldn't make when I was doing computer science classes in university in 2006. I couldn't make that in 5 years of doing long form coding. I could make it in a weekend now. That creates a big competitive landscape, but it also creates a landscape where companies like mine, we have to be ahead of the curve on R&D, and we have to do this from like a data architecture standpoint, from a strategic standpoint. So you're always modeling, you're always forecasting, and you're not just building. So, it's like, so what's the threat? I don't get to see my kids for the next 3 years sitting on top.
Yeah, right. We're just super busy.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a run on, but there's a lot of stuff going on.
Totally. So, all right. So you are spearheading sales right now, but when you approach sales effectiveness training and development for yourself and for your team, like, how do you approach that?
Yeah. So development, there's a few things I've done development personally for myself. So first, I wanted to learn, and I think you'll understand this from a software perspective, of I'm part of all of the AI engineering teams. So where I'm leading the sales teams, I'm also one of the leaders alongside our CTO within our AI engineering teams and our product teams. And I went to Harvard to take some executive education on AI strategy for this reason. And I learned when I got to Harvard, professional development, everyone's there doing the same thing. It's all big tech companies sending their C-suite there to do these expensive programs. What I learned from everyone there is all the people that were sent, at least in the classes that I was in, were like trying to figure out not just strategy, but they're trying to figure out like a solution. Okay. This is a massive problem, I think. We operate on like the lighthouse model, which is we have an outcome, we have a solution, we're trying to figure out a strategy to work towards it. That's why I went to Harvard, try to figure these things out, try to figure out the strategy, try to figure out the building blocks for our matching algorithm we were working on patenting at that time. Try to figure out the sales strategy and what can automate and what we can't automate, but knowing that the end goal is not automating the human component at the end of a sales process. So that's what I do for professional development is I try to like stay ahead of on how things are working and how other people are thinking about it, because then I can see the gaps in what they're doing and I can kind of learn from their mistakes before we make them. So that's a big personal development thing that I try to do. Our CTO operates very similarly. From our team perspective, our team, I mean, everyone says they have the best training. I wouldn't say that we have the best training because I do think we have like a small, aggressive, agile team. What I think we're getting good at as a team, though, is identifying the strengths within the team and then working from there. So people have been moving around a lot. You know, it's like in software, we can automate and we can do a lot of these things. Like you said, using AI as a tool that we don't need a massive team to compete with these big players in the field. So it's more like individualized learning for each person. Is this person weak at using technology? Well, they need to figure this out. And we support that growth and we support whatever tools they would need access to. Is this person need some coaching from a sales training? One of our board members was a previous director of Manulife, runs some of the biggest coaching programs in our country. We brought them on as a board member to do training for sales team specific to what they did within their industry that worked. And this is coaching from like a human perspective, right? So I'd say we identify a lot of different things and use a lot of different methods, but I think that's what you have to do now. It's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely, it's a more customized approach rather than just prescribing this is exactly what you need and how you need to do it. How do you know that? You want to make sure that it's customized to the individual before you just start, telling people what they need professional development and training on. Like gone are the days or off the box solutions. That's crazy. So yeah, totally agree. Love it.
And personally, I hate when people tell me to read books. Like I like to read, don't get me wrong, but when someone tells me to read a book, I'm like, no, thank you. Like,
Yeah, it's not. There's maybe you learn differently, whether it's
yeah.
auditorial or visual or actually an application. Absolutely. So when you're thinking about your own leadership, right? So you're doing your professional development, you've built these companies, you're helping run teams. What's been the hardest adjustment that you've had to make as the company's grown? I think you said something about wearing too many hats. Is there anything else? What else has been the hardest adjustment you've had to make as your companies have grown?
Yeah, I would say that was my lesson like earlier on, let's say 10 years ago, was that, yeah, you can't wear many hats and evolve. Like it's just not possible. And I think the reason people want to wear, or at least like, more type A style people like me that want to wear those many hats is because you feel like you can't pass it off unless someone you're passing it off to can do it as well or better than you. But that's not necessarily always the best decision for the company. Sometimes those small tasks aren't vital, and the person's going to get better at doing them, and they're not going to be perfect at doing them. But you need to pass those things off. It's like I had a coach when I used to, young high school athlete style, a coach that used to always say like, perfect practice is what makes like good games, or perfect practice makes perfect in games. And I thought about that like so many years later, and I'm like, man, that guy was so full of shit. Like that's the stupidest thing ever. It's like if you're so worried about being perfect all the time, you're never ever going to trust anyone else. You're never going to try new things. You're not going to innovate. It's like terrible practice makes good teams and games. Like because then you get all of the mistakes out in practice. So I don't know. If I see this guy again, I'll just be like, "What were you thinking, man? Like that was the worst advice you're giving a kids ever." So that I would say that's one thing is not trying to be perfect all the time and passing things off that are not vital. And just because also what you get stuck in as a small business owner is there's some stuff you like to do and there's stuff you have to do, right? These are like the two buckets. So the stuff you like to do, naturally you have an affinity for, you're really good at it. And the stuff you like to do is not always the stuff you have to do though. They're very different. So the stuff that you like to do that you have a great affinity for, you don't want to pass off because you're so good at it, but it's the stuff you should be passing off. So I think that's an important lesson if you want to scale a business or if you want to go into multi-business operations. So now we have 10 operating companies, all operating alongside themselves with people in place. And I would say we're breaking sales goals in pretty much all of our companies year over year.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I read on that perfection topic. I was reading some. It's better to complete it than to keep trying to make it perfect. Just get it done.
100%.
Yeah. All righty. So as we come to the end of this lovely interview, if you could give one piece of advice to an Ontario business owner who's just hit a growth ceiling, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because like we all hit growth ceilings all the time. So first, I think it would be, you should understand like not just why you're hitting that growth ceiling, but you should understand like the industry and the environment and the external influences that are leading to that hitting the growth ceiling. Because I think we all think we can solve everything, but we can't. So I'd say the lesson in that would be, maybe there's something you can't control. And if you keep trying to control that, you're wasting your time. You should be spending your time on something more productive. So I think that would be like the first thing that I would think of. And when I hit those ceilings, that's kind of what I do, is I reassess.
Mhm.
Because everyone thinks like they have unlimited potential in everything they do, and it's just not true. When I mentor young entrepreneurs, for example, everyone always said, and I say young entrepreneurs specifically because everyone can take a business program in university. I taught for like 5 years at college here, and I completely changed the entire program. They had a lawyer teaching the program. It was like an entrepreneurship style course. I built like a Dragon's Den whole syllabus of how people built companies during the entire semester, pitched them at the end, and it was really fun and interactive. What I learned dealing with young people on a day-to-day basis is, yeah, anyone can get a business degree. Not anyone can be an entrepreneur. It's a rare thing. It's a rare trait that actually leads a person to self-motivate, do all those things, and be a fire starter, a vision salesman, whatever you have to be as an entrepreneur. As a business person, I mean, you can get into the franchise model. You can be just an operator. You can be a great manager within business, but you're not an entrepreneur. So I think you need to identify who you are within those spaces to be as successful as that you could potentially become. Because the person that can't be an entrepreneur would be a great operator, a great manager, and that's what they should be. And they should stop trying to start companies and spend all their family's dollars. Because that's
Yeah.
generally what people do that are great managers or operators. They go and they get family money and then they blow it and they don't know why. And it's like, well, because you're not an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Love it. All right. I totally agree. So basically, what you're saying is stick to your strengths, use the strength that you have.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And it's really hard to look inward, right? I think one of the hardest things to do as just a human being is to look inward and say, what do I suck ass at and what am I really good at? And if you just answer that and you're truthful to yourself, you're going to be a better person, whether you're a sales leader, whether you're a CEO, whether you're an entrepreneur, a small mom and pop, you want to buy a McDonald's franchise, whatever it is. You know why you're going to be better? Because you're going to make the right decision of what you're doing with your time. And time's a valuable resource. It's the only thing that we don't have full control over, but we have full control over what we can be doing with our time.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Well, this has been a pleasure. We have come to the end of our podcast. Very insightful information, Jordan. Thank you kindly for being a guest, and we are out.
Perfect.